Good morning, this is George Lees making a video about the damage that is wreaked in all of world history and in all of world religion and in all of the world's great massacres that is wreaked by the Freemasonic movement and their links and their running by the monarchies and the elite inner circle families who are able to read and write through all of world history, yet after writing was invented in Canaan and the false Bible was launched by the Pisos in Naples and the mint run by the Pisos in Rome. Yeah, the world is forever a massive crime scene, and sadly this has been published. All of what I'm going to cite here has been published for decades and decades under the name of David Icke, which is part of the Icknield Way joke, which is all roads lead back to Rome and the places where the writing was invented in Canaan, in the Holy Lands, which are still the places and the crime scenes for the massive genocides now. So what do the gods do about that? Because they've been totally replaced by the false Jesus that the Pisos wrote about. This is what the gods do about it. Yeah, that's the ring of fire for the earthquakes that are created, okay? And much of this video is going to be focusing on a place called, in the Bible and in the story about how the world is going to be ruled, it is Mount Moray in Zion, yeah, in the places that they call the determining places for the history and the future of the world to be run like a chess game. Yet the whole of the scenario, and the fact that every one of the big churches and places of assembly has a checkerboard floor, that is a joke about the floors that are owned by the Piso authors of the Bible, and that is another way of translating their name from its Italian roots. The gods do not like the story as it has been rewritten, which is why we have the story of the massive earthquakes and the ring of fire all across the pagan lands that have now become Christian crime scenes. And it's a lovely, lovely day. And when I woke up there was not a cloud in the sky. But when I started to tell the tale again and to prepare the pictures, one by one they appeared. But it's still a lovely, lovely, innocent looking day, and I'm going to explain how the world has sadly become the sad, sad place that it now is. So I found this because on the weekend I was searching for the Moray family. The gods have told me that the Moray family and the Merovingian issues are what I need to pursue, and so I could get right up to the top of the strategic power base for the chess game that we're describing here. I found the master index for Buck's peerage, run by Oswald Mosley right up into, and his family, right up into 2014, and there are all the links to Mount Moray, in Scotland, all across France, all across Europe, and all into the French presidency, and all of the names that we've been seeing as the winners of the Grand National, and covers potentially for Eustace Mullins that revealed the crimes of the Rothschilds. Okay, and this is, let me just show you the other things I have in store for you, if I can get this computer to work. So I'm using it so I can make notes on OneNote, which is run by Bill Gates. Okay, and there are Murrays and Murdochs and dozens, that's just the Moray tab on the Forbes, the register of all of the inbred families that run the world, and that's what we're talking about now. There are 164 years now of total illegitimacy at the head of the bloodline that virtually owns the whole world. Yeah, and that's how they own America, by putting their relatives into the power base and by running it all out of Freemasonic lodges. Yeah, that is the palace in London is Kensington, I think, that they use as the Freemasonic hub for the monarchy. Princess Di lived there. I thought it had the letters P and I at the beginning of it, but let's not speculate on that, okay? So this is David Icke, and the innocent one may well have been replaced by a plant, or he may have succumbed to the death threats because he no longer talks about these things live on radio, and he does not talk about the accompanying scams that are covered up by the concept that all of the leaders of our world are come here from outer space. The people that I'm talking to and make the weather patterns are somewhere out in outer space, and I know what they think about the people that now run the world entirely for profit and to keep the numbers down by genocide. That's Princess Anne Lawrence. Yeah? Right then. So, I'm going to tell you the story, and I'm going to start there, of Hiram of Tyre. Okay? And Hiram is a legendary Freemasonic name, yeah? And his name is Hiram in some of the stories because he's the hitman that buries you in the cornerstone of your building or in the local building projects here, and it carries on right into the mafia stories in America. His name is Hiram Biff. Yeah, to be biffed is to be knocked on the head with a blunt instrument and to then subsequently sleep with the fishes. Okay, so the world's biggest secret, according to his telling of it, is that the people that run the world have come from outer space. When you read it, it is just a joke that the people who run the world run it with the slaves in the Freemasonic lodges working against their own children. Yet we're now seeing the fruits of that with the stealing of £70,000 for every honours degree that the parental generation got for nothing. Can you see the sun going in now? Yeah, that's the Freemasons at work. They're so fucking stupid that they will kill and starve, yeah, and render their children poor. Yeah, the killing bit happens because the draft board and the chess game is the imposement on them of being drafted into the great armies that are now NATO's armies. Every country has lost its sovereignty, and all of that will be explained to you in this video or the next one. Okay, so Hiram Biff, do you get it? The hitman, the slave to the monarch, and the king. Who's King Salmond, Rothschild? Yeah, all of that means that the Rothschilds never appear on the rich list, and Alex Salmond Rothschild is able to waltz into power in the Scottish government, yeah, and all of his slaves are now living in Berlin. Yeah, the people that knew him as MPs for Blackpool, yeah, they are on my Skype list. They are there now entirely as a diversion. She's online every time I write something sensational. She pops up. She has never had the courage to talk to me. Okay, and that is all of how the concept of peer pressure works. And in this master plan, it ends up first in the firing squad and then tears, crocodile tears, at the cenotaph. It's absolutely ruthless. Okay, so Hiram is part of the Freemasonic story. I've told you that about Hiram Taylor in my region. They're part of a cabal here with a global presence. Yeah, their girlfriends are Australasian, and they are total deserters to their country. He knows who he is. He's limping as if he is a war veteran. Yeah, he's a school chum of mine, and other school chums of mine in the chemistry sector have just bailed out, telling me that my videos on the prosperity of the world, and these are secondary school teachers or their children. Yeah, these are the people that died in fires in their car, and they cannot seem to see the power of God coming at them. Yeah, but they still continue with the deviant and secret society methods that had John F. Kennedy killed. Okay, so the chemical story is the perfume story as told by David Icke, but it is actually the nerve gases that were used in World War I and then again in the Syrian campaign just a few years ago, same week as I was scammed out of my job by the Freemasons of Selkirk. Okay, and the Holy Grail, the gist of the story is that they set a target for themselves. So they go 7 or 8 times to the Holy Lands in what is called a Christian crusade, and the myth is that there is treasure to be found there. Yeah, it's in the Holy Grail and the stories about Indiana Jones. Yeah, every one of those stories has a parallel in my story, and what they do is they narrowly fail to find the Grail, because it's in every fucking church in the globe. Can you see the sun going in again? Yeah, it's in, and we've shown you the Piso bloodline linkages who wrote the Bible to the people called Virgil Kint and Virgilius, the author from the Piso family. Yeah, their story in The Usual Suspects is exactly the same one as David Icke tells here. They tried to find the stash, they tried to find what was called the ephod, which is the equivalent. Let me show you what an ephod is. Every one of the farm labourers was given one when they set up their right to work, yeah, as a feudal right. That's the ephod. It's called a kist in Scottish culture, and that is what the Jewish and Israeli armies carried with them as they fought for the one true God. Yeah, that's their version of the one true God. Every other nation, every other denomination has a different definition of the one true God, and the one true gods, yeah, are likely to be much more than one, and they are totally pissed off with the whole of the Piso joke. Okay, so that's the ephod, and it becomes the iPod in your top pocket that you carry with you all around the world, so you get your instructions from the people now that are in the chipping Norton set and run the mobile phone sector. So, biblical history completed. Yeah, there are pictures of it all through the timeline that I'm going to show you. Okay, and what had got me excited on the weekend was looking for the Murrays, and I find the biblical reference to Touch Adam of Paul Mays, which just happens to be Braveheart's Stirling. Yeah, and all of the history of Stirling and all of the place names in the town are confirmation that it is a massive epicentre for the false biblical fraud. Okay, and so, and even that takes you into even the massive Murray-led Tullibardines involved in the European wars, all of which are for religious subdivision and the divide and conquer thing that even John Patterson with one T, which is a cover now for Peter Pedersen. Yeah, all of it is the same story, and all of it is covered up by tier after tier after tier of lies. Okay, so that's the Tullibardines, that is the Jacobite rebellions, and all of it is replayed all through world history, yeah, and the massacre of all of the ordinary people, depending upon which clan they are subdivided into, and whether or not the clan leader takes the bung to get bigger and bigger territories of land in somebody else's country. And all of that story is now familiar to you because of the Braveheart massive treasonous actions that continue right into this day, because every government is picked for its coercibility, and that continues now. Everybody is picked for their sins, in other words. Okay, so and the mansions are destroyed by exploding them and burying them under water, and that all of it is explained in the Masonic story told by David Icke. Okay, this is the Cunninghams that are in the Rob Roy McGregor story, yeah, and that is Rob Roy McGregor, played by Ralph Fiennes, played by the actor who is Schindler in Schindler's List. And God's actions include the killing of his wife in a skiing accident, in inverted commas, and they're ever so spooked by all of those things, as if the gods did not always have the capacity to interrupt their illegitimate bloodlines and not to give them male children when they need to pass their evil on to the next generation. Okay, so that is Archie Cunningham in popular culture, the little treasonous guy who is supported in Dundee by my mate Brian Cox, who's the Chancellor of Dundee University. He's got 5 homes in America, and he is robbing British students blind. In Dundee they only have to pay for their subsistence. That's 2 of my children, yeah, and that is their mum, who works for Chipping Norton and the English government. Valerie Jane Lee's née Hancocks, and the Hancocks and all of the tyre companies. I went to a funeral yesterday, and when you sit in the church that I went to the funeral in has no war memorial. It has a plaque for the pastors and the vicars that have served there. When I asked the current vicar, who's a stand-in because they've had sudden deaths and resignations, yeah, from the people that I've exposed for the false religion, yeah, I said, where is the war memorial here? She said, we don't have one here. Yeah, all of it becomes obvious, yeah, and they've changed the war memorial to take in 40 victims from Gallipoli since I revealed the Gallipoli joke that is Mr. Bean being the war correspondence for there, and that is the opening of the London Olympics by the head of that community. Totally illegitimate now, totally declared, read by millions and millions of people who read Greg Harrett's books. And the man who denied yesterday that anything I post, yeah, I posted on the weekend of the Celtic Rangers game the directorates of a man called Hockey, who led the Irish Terror for several decades. On Saturday afternoon I posted, the day before the game, the interlocks of Hockey to Baron Reid of Celtic, to Kenny Matheson Dalgleish of Celtic, and to all of the fraudsters in Scottish financial services and all across the whole of our kingdom. Yet all of them are on the take against the ordinary punters, and I reckon that that's why God allowed Rangers to win the penalty shootout, because their supporters have been abused by the Moray family, yeah, for 4 and 5 years now. And that is all of my disclosures on the Morays holding all of their trust funds with the Rothschilds in Auckland and in Dunedin with Todd Blackadder, and in Christchurch with Todd Blackadder, all of the people that come across as Freemasons to coach. Yeah, we've still got the hopelessly inept Australian in charge of Scotland. Yeah, it's absolutely sickening. Okay, so Touch Adam of Paul Mays is Wallace's Strong Lands of Stirling, where the Chancellor there is my sworn enemy, Jim Naughty. Yeah, you cannot get. He's a fat, blubbery man from the BBC, tells lies all of the time. Yeah, he's the Melrose Book Club man. Yeah, and what you've got is the mansions that get destroyed. I think I'm going to have to make a second video all on Hiram of Tyre and the David Icke Mason story. I think I will do that and cut this one short. Okay, can you get, and there's Salmond open. Not sure what that one is, I've forgotten since the weekend. Let's have a wee quick look at that. Salmond open cast. Oh yeah, so in the places near Jim Naughty's University of Stirling, yeah, they have mining, and it covers up the massive places. So what you do is that if you've got secrets or mansions that they do not want you to know about, yeah, touch Adam in the Bible of Paul Mays. Yeah, if they do not want you to know that they're taking the piss about Christianity, then what they do is they create a lake like they did at Rutland, yeah, or at Grapham, or at Loch Leven, yeah, and what they do is that they cover up all of the secrets. And this one, the mansion at Touch Adam of Paul Mays' residence, was exploded by the British military in 1957, which is the year that I was born. Okay, and the places that are legendary names in that region is Gillies Hill, and that is where all of the treasonous action and the history of that region took place. Okay, and there's the map, and all of those places are linked by parallel lines that are alleged to take you through Paris. It's all a crock of shit, and all of it is told by the Freemasons in a deadly serious manner, and all of it is just a repeating joke. So the joke that they never ever find the treasure, yeah, it's the same with the one-legged pirate, yeah, that goes across the world, and they're dead scared that is Long John's silver, yeah, so they're looking for the silver, they're looking for the gold, yeah, that's every diaspora, yet none of the ordinary citizens ever find the silver or the gold. All of that is now mined out all around the world, and what they do instead is they appoint people to the banks that are the federal banks, yeah, that are miners, yeah, for David Cameron, yeah, that is the Bush Overby scandal, it's Cairn Energy, they are still on the court of the Bank of England today. The energy products are totally provided by the gods, they are totally renewable, we will never run out of them unless they proceed with the fracking project, which takes the pressure in the subterranean regions down and down and down, and then renders even the gods in the heavens incapable of controlling the production of the free energy that every government has stolen from its people, and that is the forecourt scams. Okay? Yeah, and the gods will continue to create quakes and all of those massive volcanic actions if that policy continues, along with the global warming scam that is that the weather patterns are due to human consumption sins. It's absolutely ruthless. So that is 24 minutes. I don't know whether or not to take you to Hiram of Tyre. Let's have a go. Okay. So Hiram of Tyre, yeah, do you get it? The Tyre is the Formula 1 thing, and at the funeral yesterday, when you sit in the row in the church and you look out the window, the word Tyre is staring you in the face. None of that is an accident. Every one of the Freemasonic vents is in that part of town. Yeah, and it's the second or third Church of Scotland venue. The one that was preceded them is now a wreck and a ruin, not because of an act of God, but because the money fucking stream ran out. Okay? Yeah, there are 3 parish churches in a tiny town called Kelso that I live in, all of them dedicated to the Church of Scotland. Yeah, one of them is a ruin. And there's several others as well. It's just amazing. And that the population here is less than 8,000 people. Right then. So, Hiram of Tyre. Let's go to the top and see whether or not I would be able to fit the pictures in. You see them flashing past. Loads of them are familiar jokes to you now. The cornerstone of King Solomon's temple. Shall I start an extra video or yeah, let's keep going. At last the day had arrived when solemn ceremony King Solomon was to lay the cornerstone of the temple. Okay, that's not the date. This is way back, right back in the recorded human history, and all of it is likely to have been written in the last couple of 100 years. Okay, and all of the Freemasons that are involved in sharing the jokes with the world, most of them die young. Take a look at the Auf Wiedersehen pet cast as an outstanding example of that. How the ordinary working man, when he laughs at his war-dead ordinary working men, yeah, and the Masonic jokes that take them to their deaths, not many of those casts live long. Yeah, that's why they have to make more and more cartoons. Yeah, more and more cartoons. They dare not play those death-defying roles that have created havoc in the community of the media, the false news people, and the Hollywood tell it as a lie through all of human history story. Okay, during the morning. Okay, so this is King Solomon was to lay the cornerstone of the temple. During the morning the Hebrew priests had made sacrifices, and throughout the country Masonic lodges were assembled. Every Mason, whatever his degree, was to be found in his lodge. Okay, and they've got magnificent uniforms like every one of the generals and field marshals and monarchs and kings and queens and knights of Malta still have. Okay, King Solomon and his guest, King Hiram of Tyre, Formula 1 tyres preferred, yeah, went towards Mount Moray. Ooh, Andy Murray, yeah, the real Andy Murray was involved in the 30 years Christian versus Christian 30 years war, and all of them were beginning to fly to America with the massive weaponry, yeah, just a musket in those days, that brought down all of the 500 nations in America. Okay, so Mount Moriah, guess where, is fucking Jerusalem. Yeah, it's right in the heart of the Holy Lands that are still, right up to this very day, the heart of the controversial battle zones and all of those massive crusades. 7 or 8 of them, to keep flattening everything that was built in the name of the false Jesus, yeah, and the Jewish faith, which is equally fraudulent, yeah, and all of that is written by the same families. They're the cleverest family that ever lived, and they now become Salmond Rothschild. If you look for references for that name now in the Rothschild bloodline and the Kuhn and Loeb bloodlines that took over America, you will struggle to find it since I started to reveal it. Okay, so Glenn Moray, yeah, it's quite spooky that when I went to watch the Rangers and Celtic match, the first thing that I asked the barman is, how much would it cost for a malt whiskey and what would you recommend as the cheapest? And this came up. Yeah, and it's absolute, and this is the malt joke and the malted vinegar that Jesus was given on the cross, as it was written by the and this is Speyside, where our man, who's now negotiating the future of Europe, unelected with Tony Blair, is Lord Kerr of Kinlochart, formerly the boss at Imperial College, London. Okay, so the Mount Moray yeah, and all the names and all the people. I once knew, I had a relative called Beth, and she died in her teenage years. All of that is part of the Jewish jokes and the place names. It's quite stunning, the power of God, when you see it. Okay, and there is the Glen Moray Ads, crafted with expertise by Lord Kerr of Kinlochart and all of the people that are in charge of the EU Brexit scams. Okay, and the Murrays that tell you all of the tennis things. Yeah, all of it is covered up, and that is the fault line that runs between Loch Leven and Fife and the Oban region on the other side of the country, accompanied by their lifeguards and various high officials. So what was the lead up to that? I think that's just Mount Moriah in the biblical references. Okay, so 1 hour before midday, King Solomon and his guest King Hiram of Tyre went towards Mount Moriah. Okay, this is used at this story in every Freemasonic lodge across the world. It's £250 a year for the privilege to laugh at your children being conscripted into the next war. Okay, and there's the Glen Moray Distillery, Bruceland Road. Have you heard of the Bruces? They are the Freemasonic icons. Robert the Bruce's heart was brought back from one of the crusades into the Holy Land and is now buried in Lord Sanderson of Bowden's Dryburgh Abbey. Okay, yeah, that's where the distillery is, in Morayshire, and it's familiar zone for me. Every year we went fishing up there. The last time we went, yeah, my wife had the car and I went there on a bicycle, yeah, from Grantnonsbay, which is up here, and there is all of the places that link you to Aberdeen and the people that I met on the weekend called Henderson. Ever so nervous now about what God is doing about the history of our country. Okay, and there is Google Images, Lord Kerr of Kinlochart. Okay, UK Parliament. Name John Olaf Kerr, joined the Lords in 2002, 2010, became a trustee of the Rhodes Profiteering Trust. The global initiatives to steal the world from every one of its indigenous citizens, and even its indigenous politicians. Yeah, what's happening now is that there's this massive adoption scam to bring people of other races and religions into the countries, and then, like Obama, they become the presidents. Yeah, everywhere you go you see it now. I saw it in New Zealand, I see it in the Catholic Church every Sunday, and it's all over the place. And that is the way that they overcome God's demands on what happens in the birthing of the children, what happens in utero, whether it's male or it's female, or it thrives, or whether it gets the result that Gordon Brown and David Cameron's children got. Okay, God is incredibly insightful. They've watched this for all of that time. Okay, so having arrived at the foot of Mount Moriah, the two sovereigns alighted from their horses, yeah, that's the Piso giddy up horsey joke, and proceeded alone on foot. At that moment they were approached by Grand Master Hiram. I'll biff you if you do not do everything that we demand, commanded by the kings and queens. Yeah, who, greeting them respectfully as Grand Masters of Freemasonry, invested them with the aprons that Field McConnell wears, yeah, and hangs from his broadcasting studios in Plum City, which comes into the story further down. Yet aprons of lambskin, lambs to the slaughter. Every one of the Masons, 250 quid a year to be conscripted into the army. Yeah, and you'll see further down that their icon before Hitler despoiled it was the swastika. And it's called a Piny in the kitchen. Okay, so you've got your kilt on so that you become the cross-gender ladies laddies joke. Yeah, and you've got your little apron as a dutiful follower, yeah, who's prepared to kill if you're the biff man, or is prepared to bury the innocents in the cornerstone if you're in the mafia. And it is so familiar. It's all over the dollar bills in America. It's all over all the currencies and all of the government propaganda globally. Okay, the lambskin apron, MasonicWorld.com. According to Masonic tradition, the second Grand Lodge or Sacred Lodge was held on the holy ground of Mount Moray under the guidance of Grand Masters King Salmond, Hiram, King of Tyre, and Hiram Abiff, the hitman. Yet the soldier in the stories about the great conflicts. The builder is called in this one that ground where, according to legend, Adam was created. Do you see why I'm so fascinated by the Scottish jokes about the Garden of Eden being the Balfours farm, yeah, and Tush Adam of Wallace being Stirling Castle, right next door to the places where the Bruce Freemasons were able to win their historic victories. That ground where, according to legend, Adam was created was in the possession of two brothers, both married, but only one of them with children. Yeah, all of the legends and the stories are the same. Okay, and that is the story about all of God determining who has the children, the need for adoption, the need for someone to be the next claimant, and it makes everybody slaves, and they have no right of inheritance for the fucking stupid brothers. And that is the song Avicii, Oh Brother, yeah, that was a massive hit for over 7 weeks. It's just a global cabal of really stupid people, yet who are able to take their children to their deaths. They control the papers, they control the P2 banks, yeah, and that is in that statement on the bigger picture for the Moravingians, proclaimed by David Icke. Okay, this repeated itself for several days until one night the brothers met in the fields, both loaded with sheaves. Wait till you see the UN symbol. Yeah, seed scattered fruitlessly on the ground, and all of that ground is blood red. Yeah, for reasons that you will see very, very soon. Mount Moray was chosen as the site of the temple of King Solomon. Now listen, did you know that, Andy Murray? Now listen to the continuation of the legend of the cornerstone. A long procession of Freemasons separated itself from the crowd, and thousands of brethren vested their aprons, followed their 3 Grand Masters, and proceeded slowly towards the imposing foundations on the top of the mountain. When the long file of masons had arrived on the site of the temple, they found in the northeast corner a platform of bronze. Do you get the gist of the jokes that I've told you in the recent stories and the Piny story? Okay, so when you look up platform of bronze now, you get the woman's ass. Yeah, and it's my wife who's explained to me the role of the high heels in women's attractiveness to the opposite gender. Yeah, and the platform of bronze that they later sit on, you can guess, I think, already what that may be. This is very explicit. I'm going to flash it past you quickly. Okay, there's the platforms of bronze and the Babylonian pictures of every financial centre on our globe now. Yeah, it's the penis. Okay, some of them are circumcised, some of them are Gentile. Yet all of them were brought down in the Twin Towers, were Gentiles, and the Jews funded that one. Okay, and there is. So the brethren arrayed themselves around the platform in a particular manner, the nearest forming a triangle, the next a circle, yeah, and the furthest a square, which encompassed nearly the whole area of the temple. Every church in the world, every palace in the world, yeah, and many of those churches now that have the status of cathedrals have share issuance scams run by these people, who are the same people as build these as their residences and their places of worship. An outstanding example of that is at Eccleston Estate in Cheshire, where the Duke of Westminster lives with his sister, or in their early days with Lady Jane Grosvenor. Okay, they're in charge for their coercibility of the British Legion for several decades, with a 700 million anti-litigation fund in case someone like me comes along. Okay, so there is the legendary design called for by the Freemasons, and I doubt very much whether or not there ever was a Solomon's Temple. It's just a series of geometrical and arithmetic jokes, and the capacity to draw things at bizarre angles. Yeah. So there is another manifestation of it. Okay, and this one I've already told you about, which is the smutty side of it. So the bronze thing that they sit on is the human penis, and this is Solomon's Temple, oval, lavu, vulva. I've explained that joke to you, and all of the Jewish angels' jokes, above in heaven, below in hell, and that becomes the underground in Paris and all of the great metropolitan cities. And it's a massive joke about something that humans have created under the Pi Piso pyramids, and in the bloodline that contains all of those pharaohs, and Arsenal, the Arsenal Football Club joke. Okay, and the all-seeing eye, all of that is on the dollar bill. That is on some of my videos, yeah, and all of it is totally shocking. That is the Pi Piso Pi, which is the vagina and the vulva, yeah, flapping for the Irishman that made all of the jokes about the nuns, yeah, that is their vulvas flapping around. It's not at all subtle, yeah, and it is the Piso American pie. It is the joke about the foot of the willow, and all of the stories are absolutely sordid. Okay, and it's the male cock, and it's the rock of ages, and it's the erection, and it's having wood. Hiram Abiff placed himself in the geometrical centre, yeah, of Solomon's Temple. After a few moments of solemn silence, he turned towards the Grand Master Salmond, and with a calm voice said, "It is high noon." Yeah, and that is the joke about the sun god being displaced by all of the smut and the second comings. Okay, and there is high noon with the Piso pistol and the Gary Cooper, who is the icon for the Coopers that are the killers of the 500 nations all over America, as this looks down on them, and that presumably is why they have so many grand canyons, massive waterfalls, and so many great deserts, yeah, because the gods saw what was happening to their creations in the form of the American Indians. All of them are obliged to smoke the Pi Piso piss pipe take pipe that Harold Wilson smoked, and you'll see it in a few minutes. Okay, after these words, Solomon lifted his right hand, and with his gavel of ebony, with a handle of ivory, he gave 3 knocks on the stone for the Christian crosses in front of him. Yeah. Okay, and here is the rock in Jerusalem. Yeah, in the museum now. Yeah, and all of the stories that Monty Pythons laugh at, and you still see it, and that's just like the rock that landed on John Cleese. Yeah, when they're manipulating the news and it gets so out of hand that even the preacher ends up under God's rock. That does not surprise me at all. That's exactly what happened under Vesuvius when the Pisos wrote the Bible there. The silence that therefore enveloped the mountain was as profound as that which reigned before there was life on this earth. Down the slopes, yeah, the gods are amazingly powerful, yeah, and in the valleys and in the cities and everywhere on earth fell this solemn silence. But hark, there were more knocks of wood on stone, strong and insistent nearby, then further away, and finally so far that they could no longer be heard by those present on Mount Moriah. Okay? Wherever there were lodges, wherever vibrated the free air of God, where Mason's heart were beating, and where brotherly love attended, they have totally replaced the gods by the fictitious Jesus. Okay? Right then. So, skiing lodge, Bavaria. Yeah? That's the references that we've just seen above to down the mountainside and the avalanches. Yeah? God is in control of all of that. And the woman who played Queenie and laughs at all of the jokes about infidelity and the kingdom being run, yeah, by lust in the bedroom, yeah, she died really young on the ski slopes, and that is Mr. Schindler's missus. Okay, and there is the story about Bavaria being the homeland to the bears in the woods, who are the Rothschilds, and that picture there shows you who they really are. That is Jacob, Hannah's dad. That is Nathan, Hannah's brother, and those are the American de Rothschilds. Yeah, massive fraudsters, massive institutional owners. None of them declare their ownership of what they actually have, otherwise they would be openly declared as the people that have become the gods on this earth, totally paid for by all of the war dead. Okay, there's Kissinger. There is the one that is David Rockefeller, who's now at 98, in league with him at 78, and they're beginning to merge together in the families. Yeah, there's Ben Bernanke, who is the one that has stolen all of America's banking prospects and handed them over to Janet Yellen. Okay, and there in the next picture is the two elderly and crusty people, yeah, who failed to get on the rich list. Again, it's Jacob and it's David Rockefeller. Yeah, Tom Hanks's bloodline, massive fraud out of Bavaria, and the Rothschild red is the god's colours, and they pretend that. Yeah, and it's the revolutionary colours, and all the revolutionaries are paid for to tell lies, and that takes you right into Corbyn now, yeah, who's replaced all of the false socialists that I have denounced for their coming out of Lithuania, where all the genocides were perpetrated by those. Towards the slopes of Lebanon, where the cedars were felled and where the stones were, okay, the signal of Masonic force spread over the whole world towards the east, towards the south, towards the west, and even towards the twilight of the north, where Sally Magnuson presents songs of praise. Those knocks went further and further towards the slopes of Lebanon, where the cedars, yeah, were felled and where the stones were cut. Okay, right into Chipping Norton, and where my wife took me before I swore half of my innocent life to her. Okay, and this becomes the church roof. That's the Lebanese cedar wood. It's in the churches that are the most beautiful I have ever visited, and that is the beautiful Episcopalian cedar church with the words and the initials KP, CP and Kelso is the place where I worship on a Sunday. I worship God. I do not worship Jesus. Jesus never lived. And all of the people now know that, and they try harder and harder to silence me, but not in that particular church. They realise the power of the pathologies that God imposes on their community, and they now realise that if you start to talk about that openly, then there is a way out, and it leads to longer and healthier lives. And it's quite stunning how genial they can be under pressure like that. Okay, so that's the Lebanon that was brutalised. That is the Knights of Malta that were sent to the Lebanon by the papacy to brutalise that country. And Peter Eyre and even Bowden talk about such things, in the old days, before all of them. So there's what God gets now. And God is now the dog on the end of the reed. Okay, so the beautiful and when you look for cedar church roofs, that's the images you get. They are totally ashamed of what they've done. For thousands of years they've brutalised that region in the name of all of these iconic Masonic emblems and flags and standards and everything that they have. The world's list of leading Freemasons include people that I've been invited to play golf with. They thrive in the Irish sectarian troubles, and that is the Italian brothers of Ibrox, where the king stammeringly made his Empire State speech 1 year before he committed our country to war. Okay, so here is another, and at the church on Sunday there was a christening, and the vicar, who's a very humorous character, because the whole thing is a joke since God was replaced, he said God's ear. He said it like hair, and when I looked up hair, God, guess what you find? You find that there is a hare god. That is the dogs and the hounds chasing the hares with the amber eyes, which are the Jews on Kristallnacht. It's totally tragic. It's a joke through all of world history about the genocides that ensue, and the Hare Krishna is spelt like the hare with the amber eyes that is the victim of the anti-Semitic massacres and the demonization of the German Jews in World War II by the Supreme Court Jews in America that were Brandeis and Untermeyer, and all of it is for cash genocides. Hare Krishna. The hound is the hounding them down, and that is the Schindler's List joke, on the Piezo horse, on the balcony, watching hundreds and hundreds get killed on Kristallnacht. Did you know that? And that is God's hair or ear, that is Jesus. God almost totally disappeared. Right then, and there's the greyhounds in the White City for death, and the hare, and the amber region of Europe is right up on the Baltic coast where the Polish came from, and they were culled in their millions in World War II just for the same joke. And the Wally Duggs on every working man's mantelpiece through all of the endangered labour period is just a joke that we're watching you from the mantelpiece, and if you do not behave or run quickly enough away from us, when we try and get you into the militias in World War I or World War II, then you're going to get it, yeah, and your throat will be ripped out by the local factors. Yeah, really quite humorous. And the zebra is the ass that Jesus, yeah, it's the ass that tows the Rothschild profiteering trucks, and it is the ass that is Jesus in the story that was written. There's the hare with amber eyes about the Crystal Massacre. And do you know the meaning of amber on the traffic lights? Get ready to go to your deaths. It's absolutely ruthless. That book was written by Edmund de Waal, and when I was commuting into the pharmacy in Edinburgh, where all of the war dismembered people that had the nerve gas issues as immunisation issues before they went to war in Iraq or Afghanistan, they returned to Scotland dismembered by their health, yeah, and they are now the leading cause of poverty and homelessness in Scotland. That's the returning troops, totally dismembered, yet like every conflict is designed to do. Radio 4 with Jim Naughtie, the traitor from, yeah, all of it was serialised, and it's just amazing that they think they can get away with it, and that the ordinary people are so stupid they will not notice it. Ahead towards the rafts that's transported the stones, further and further, and the echo of that knock still reverberates in our days. Yeah, that's Knock House, where the Rothschild sired Princess Victoria, yeah, went to live, and that is Brian Cox's, I forget what he's the Duke of Argyll, and that is the Duke of Argyll's territory on Mull, yeah, where Hitler visited the Queen in World War II. Thank you to David for telling me that. Our master replies to the knock of King Solomon's gavel, and with it calls us to labour. Yeah, this is the Mason's joke. Yeah, every one of the working men in the Masons learn these stories so they can have a snigger about what happened to the war dead in World War II as they attend the British Legion, drink themselves stupid, and then march, yeah, as if they were actually grieving for the war dead that died under the Masonic icon of the Swastika in World War II or in World War I, with the perfume joke all over them. That's the nerve gases. Okay, so a little bit further down there's Harold Wilson with the piezo pipe, who carpet bombs the Garden of Eden in 1963. Do you get it? Time magazine, all the jokes about the Rothschilds siring Queen Victoria's babies, yeah, and them ending up all over Europe as false monarchs to support the massive conflicts in 1914 and then again in 1939. He's involved in the Garden of Eden, which is now the yeah men for the Beatles. Yeah, and that's the Oy vey Vich joke. Yeah, takes you right back into Roman Etrusca and all of the jokes on the war graves there for the Roman Empire and all roads that lead back to Rome, like the Icknield David Icke way. Okay, and then King Salmond spoke. Okay, and there is what you get when you look for Salmond. Yeah, a new Muppet character, or Salmond's shoes, or a salmon, yeah, which is the fish and the penis through all of their jokes. And it's salmon fishing in the Garden of Eden, which is the Yemen for the man who is the Rothschild that played Obi-Wan Kenobi, yeah, in the stories about Star Wars. Yeah, and all of the menace coming from outer space, as it was written by David Icke and the Freemasons. Okay, do you get it? It's really quite funny if you're in the lodge, yeah, and you manage to sidestep the war, but your kids are there in extreme danger, yeah,
We are here assembled as the great architect of the universe, that's God, who's out of the story, to bear witness, that's the Rothschilds, that we have abundance, and he has given us only on loan, and to demonstrate that the talents, which was a currency, he has endowed us with, are used in his service. Everything's a piss take about the heavens. We, my brethren, have not done so. Hiram Abif, the hitman, proposed to engrave the name of the king. I suggested the name of the architect. We discussed these possibilities when King Hiram of Tyre had the happy idea of suggesting the name of the Most High. But, my brethren, God wrote his name on the heavens. He carved it in the mountain slopes. Yet everything we have is given us by God, and is taken away by the damming and the flooding of those massive regions. And in the riverbeds he put his mark on the fields, and on the forests, on the flowers and the plants, on birds and beasts. He traced his name on the clouds, and on the rays of the sun, on the silence of the storm, on the thunderbolt of his anger, and on the rainbow of his promise. That's what keeps me going. They are amazing. They are really dangerous people when riled up or agitated into extinction, which is what the human race has done to them. He engraved it in the hearts of men, the great architect of the universe, and they pretend now that he is the creator of that massive secret society that is global Freemasonry. The great architect of the universe, Christian Cross T. Hereford. No need for us to write his name. They deliberately misspelt that. And consequently, this cornerstone will remain without it. Nor shall so God's gone, but the humans in Rothschild yellow still run it, and that's the Christian cross, as a laugh, and in the world's biggest ever diversion from the world's biggest ever cause of death. Nor shall we engrave a date. Which year should we choose? The year of the king, said Hiram Abif. The year of the builder, said I. We found many arguments, until eventually the wise Hiram of Tyre proposed the heavenly date. The idea seemed a sound one, but what is the heavenly date? The years men have lived and sinned on the earth, or the year of the infinite itself? We decided that choosing a date for the divinity would be like using his name in vain. Renee and Georgia meet with their dog after the war. Brethren, this stone will therefore remain without a date. And what could we hide in the stone? A fistful of gold coins, but all of the gold in the world belongs to the Most High, that's God. The effigy of a man, perhaps sculptured in precious metals like gold, but all men belong to God. He praises the righteous, whilst the wicked are punished with the desperation of solitude. That's the good people of the world now have solitude. It is absolutely turned on its head. Should you then place the sacred scriptures in the stone? That's the Rock of Jerusalem, massive joke, and the tribe of Ben. And there's all of my disclosures and all of my headlines about the real truth and about how they laugh at it. That's Frankie Howard in Up Pompeii laughing at the ass, yet still being on the end of his lead. That's Jesus in the Piso story. That's the Villa Papyri Piso Bible fraud under Vesuvius, and there is the result. And all of the jokes about Pinocchio, all of the jokes about Stromboli being in the circus when the boy with no strings just fails to get home and is the son of a shoemaker. It's all the same jokes as the Warner Brothers and all the great genocides in Poland. Piso Christian Frauds version 4. Every one of the initials and inscriptions on the cross I have now sussed them out. Yeah, and I'm now just looking for the Morays, yeah, for the massive families that lived up the Teviot Valley that God tells me that I need to look for. Will not give you any clues, because their names then get removed from the search engine from that point onwards. Brethren, the result would be that only those who would destroy the temple would have access to the truth. This is the Masonic capacity to kill the world hundreds and thousands of times over using their nuclear weaponry stockpiles. Okay? Christian Crusades and Saracens, 8 or 9 of those. Robert the Bruce's heart is a pivotal part of all of the beliefs that drive us there, again and again and again. And that's the Red Cross for the ambulance service, yeah, run from Switzerland by the profiteers since the Nazi gold was taken from the teeth, and a lot further back in crusading history. Yeah, that's Radbot, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and all of the Bavarian criminal mafias, the 13 mafia families. Okay? James Blunt, no bravery, Iraq dead, Hannah Rothschild. Yeah, you do not get the images of cuddling the dead babies, or of the Rothschild Trust in New Zealand that I've published so effectively, yeah, and shamed them into harassing me into 2 or 3 prosecutions through the corrupted Piso Polish in the same month. Yeah. Who hides the truth? So there's James Blunt, no bravery, Iraq war dead, Rothschild dead man's boots. None of those images appear now. The video still has that soundtrack. There is no bravery anymore. All of it. Blunt is one of the warmongering relatives of Uncle Desmond, yeah, or of the Blunt, the treasonous spy in Operation Winnie the Pooh, yeah, or the Christopher Robin equivalent in the war. Yeah, massive fighting for all sides, and the war dead are the innocents, and the profiteers are in the War Office with Oswald Mosley, who runs Burke's Peerage, the Master Index, the Master Race Index. Who hides the truth, retards the diffusion of wisdom. Should we then hide in this stone the documents of Freemasonry? But the craft does not have any. It is the prophecy of great things to come, the promise of glorious events. That's extinction for them. The bud of profound truths. That's the rosebud vagina Piso jokes. The Han's brethren for his great temple will lay the cornerstone without a name, without a date, and empty. Yeah, the treasure is always missing, and that's the Usual Suspects movie. Yeah, the cripple always limps off with it. Yeah, that's Long John Silver in one of the earlier versions, and it is Indiana Jones in that massive series of jokes. Yeah, about the good men being in charge of the world. Please note, the hidden treasures will never be found, like Hannah Rothschild's balls. See Dance of the Quatre Bras, which is the 4 arms, which is the icon for the Isle of Man, which was the icon for Alex Salmond Rothschild in his fundraiser that was the Scottish referendum debate, ahead of the ephod, which is the working man's chest, now the iPod for the Chipping Norton phone magnets. Okay, and there is the iPod, yeah, with all the treasures in it. There is the one true Jesus in inverted commas, and there's the Turkish half moon that sparks all of their great conflicts, because the Pisos also launched that fictitious religion. Okay, there's the papacy and the little hearts, yeah, and there is the Jewish cleric who is the rabbi, yeah, and the rabbits, and John is always the leader of this movement. If it's the French connection, it's Jean. Watch the watch the Fifth Element movie and see all of the archaeological Masonic jokes replayed in one massive piss take. Okay, so that is John. St. John is Santiago, and that is why the Freemasons always call the leading cleric Jean. Do you get it now? Santiago, Lagos, the rabbit of Macedonia. All of it is a mass, and there's the dance of the quatre bras, the four arms in the circle which forms the swastika for the global Freemasons, and that's the bloodline of the Holy Grail, and the Holy Grail is the promised treasure. No one ever fucking finds it. Watch the Usual Suspects movie if you no longer understand what I'm telling you. It's the same joke over and over and over again. Every war, every suicide, every genocide, and every mission for the church that is the Piso fraud. And every one of the popes that become pious this and pious that are directly in the bloodline. The murderous, genocidal bloodline. And there is the quatre bras, Max Wall, dance like Egyptian joke. Kylie does it. All of them lose breasts, and all of them get massive pathologies. When the woman that sings about being picked to play the game sings about flying up to heaven out of Santa Monica Boulevard, she loses a breast too. Sheryl Crow sings with the man's sting about the fields of gold, and that is the treasury and the casting of your seed on the ground, and the pretense that God still has total control of that all over the universe that he created. Okay, do you get that? Dance like an Egyptian. Harold Wilson, 1963, Piso pipe, carpet bombing. Salmond then kneeled and asked the divine blessing for his people and for all Freemasons, and whilst there was a sound of music and the chant of 1,000 voices, the Masons put the cornerstone into position, with the innocents crushed underneath it in cement. King Solomon handed the level to the Grand Master Hiram, King of the Tyre, that you can see through the window in the church with no war memorial, and the plum rule to Grand Master Hiram Abiff, saying, "Keep these utensils and use them up to the completion of the construction, when I shall send messengers to collect them." And you can see that the right wing of their loaded justice scales is totally there, and the revolutionary left wing is right up in the air. Everything is twisted, and that's the Benghazi embassy that was never existed, and that's Hillary Clinton's broken ankle. Okay, the whole world is a lie. Okay, by means of the square he then checked every angle of the stone, and turning towards the four winds, that's the four elements that they know about, declared it to be, that's the earth, water, fire and wind, that are the four elements that are waiting for the fifth one to come along. And all of the human rulers are alleged to be spacemen. Do not worry too much about that. Just watch what's happened to your pension and where it's all gone. King Hiram of Tyre in turn checked the stone with great care and declared it to be perfectly level. Like the crash in 2008 that all of the poor are still paying for, and that's a fudge wrapper. Okay. Hiram Abiff, using his jewel, the plum rule, carefully examined the stone, and looking down and up towards the sky, where God is, exclaimed that it was perfectly plumb. Okay, that's perfectly balanced. That is the joke that cost the lives of so many men in the Auf Wiedersehen pet comedies. The very opening scene was when they got to German border control, they took their plumb measuring device to see if it was on a level, yeah, as they entered the country, and he said, your wall's not plumb. Yeah, that's the walls of Jericho, that's Solomon's temple. The whole thing is a Freemasonic piss take. He's dead, he's dead, he's been disappeared. I've seen him in a train station since I came back in 2009. That one's dead too. That's the leader, and he has a conscience, and they must be ever so nervous. Only 2 of the casts still alive. And they take the piss out of the genocide in Argentina by racing across the minefields. Yeah, that's him with the crocodile shoes. That's the ordinary working man making a joke about the scales of justice. Yeah, and all of the wars that kill all of the Geordies and all of the Markhams. Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, yeah, with the P and E, Piso word at the beginning. Many of the casts sadly now dead for deserting the common man that they entertain since they dropped the swastika as a Freemasonic icon. Yeah, that's in the next images. That's Hitler abusing the global Freemasons' reputation by taking that icon for the quatre bras, yeah, or the spinning legs, yeah, and the 3-legged joke for Rolf Harris. It's the same fucking joke. It is the rays of the sun eventually in that one. Globally, for centuries, it has been the Masons' icon, and Hitler despoiled it. And Hitler is a Rothschild, like Salmond, King Salmond, King Solomon. Do you get it? All wars, all sides, all the great conflicts, all the massacres, yeah, everything engineered by them. And the Isle of Man, and it's still the fucking symbol for them. And Salmond was prepared to use that to fund an independent Scotland. Yeah, and there is the net result in World War II. And it's the wagon inn, and it is the wagon trails, and all of the jokes, yeah, about killing all of those American Indians all across the land with Taze Russells, yeah, icon. That is the icon for 19 countries, and 19 countries use St Andrew, who never lived, as their patron saint. And King Solomon, approaching the cornerstone once more, strewed grain upon it. This is the United Nations one. Let's get this in quick before my batteries run out. May there be abundance in this country for my people and for all faithful members of the Brotherhood. So mote it be. That is the motto. So be it as it was written in the Piso Bible. Whilst the king strewed grain, the masters of the nearby lodges did likewise. That's all the people on the Forbes rich list, out of Germany, out of Munich, out of Frankfurt, and the lodges there. Thereafter those of the distant lodges and all the English equivalents, and in this manner the message spread to all the lodges in the stammering Windsor Piso bloodline. Yeah, that is the stammering king who made his empire speech at the Italian brothers Ibrox. Okay, and the responses of the brethren was so clear that even the sailors on the sea strained their ears and listened. Thank you to the Italian brothers in my region for realizing the truth of my stories. One of the brothers in the family have got the message, and he's now my best friend. His dad was sick for a while. I hope he's getting better now. Yeah, and Rangers deservingly won on the weekend after 4 years of persecution of the supporters to cover the massive crimes of David Moray. Yeah, not necessarily from the Moray mountain. Okay, and this is that strained their ears and listened, and the response of the brethren was so clear that even the sailors on the sea strained their ears and listened. That's Prince Philip, in charge of the British Navy for decades, Yet he is in our country to dismember its sovereignty, and came here in a sectarian orange box, out of Greece, the first of the civilizations where all of the